Hello everybody, welcome to my channel, and today I want to cover an interesting theme in I Am Legend that I seriously haven't noticed any other film commentator mention at all. I haven't noticed any other video that's covered the subject, so I felt compelled to cover the subject. And it's the element of God in I Am Legend. So let's get to it. So here we see a post-apocalyptic New York City. We see here in this image, essentially, deserted, abandoned, post-collapse of civilization. We see the nature reclaiming territory that was once of a human civilization. So everything is abandoned, deserted, right? And here we have our protagonist, Robert Neville, played by Will Smith. And here he is. Here he is accompanied by his dog Samantha, essentially the co-protagonist of this film. So essentially this is the introduction to the film. And here we see in the film's context, what caused the collapse of civilization? Well, it was caused in a cynically ironic way by something that was meant to be a cure. And that cure ended up creating a total new virus that would cause the destruction of humanity and civilization, which would essentially turn people into these vampiric entities, vampiric creatures. And essentially it's all by her. So essentially, so far that's the introduction of this film. So here we see essentially Robert Neville trekking along this obviously abandoned New York City, and he is seemingly the last man on Earth. So it's just him and his dog Samantha. And so he would often go out to appear by next to ships and broadcast a radio signal, hoping someone would hear it and come, because seemingly he does seem to be the last man on Earth. Definitely, at least the last man in all the New York City, basically. Then later on, he comes across Anna. And here's an interesting subject here. Here's where really it all ties in together. It's in the middle of the film, essentially. And it's in a quiet moment of the film, where I believe in the quiet moment of film is where the core of the film is. Like, what's the actual core theme of this film, And in this film, it's of God. Really, this film is actually about God. It really is all about God. So, he's with Anna, and they're having a discussion, a philosophical discussion about God, right? So she starts off saying that there's a colony, and he says there's no colony.
The colony.
There's no colony, Anna.
See?
Everything just fell apart. There was no evacuation
You're wrong.
plan.
There is a colony.
And essentially she insists that there is a colony. And then throughout the scene, we're doing a quick recap. She's insisting there's a colony, and he's saying there isn't. And he tells her, how are you sure? How do you know?
How? I said, how do you know? How could you know?
God told me.
There we go. So this is really the beginning of this whole scene and the layout of this scene, where it's all revolving around the subject of God.
He has a plan.
God told you.
Yes.
And of course, Robert is dumbfounded by it, and she's insistent. And here's the key part.
Something told me to turn on the radio. Something told me to come here.
My voice on the radio told you to come here, Al.
So, the key part. She's saying that God told her to get there. It was God's plan. And then she mentions how Robert was trying to unalive himself and essentially...
Right?
Anna,
And I got here just in time to save your life. I think it's a coincidence. No, the world is quieter now. You just have to listen.
So that's another key part right there.
If we listen, we can hear God's plan.
God's plan.
Yeah.
All right, let me tell you about your God's plan.
So Robert goes into an understandable tangent about the current predicament in society.
People on Earth when the infection hit. KV had a 90% kill rate. That's 5.4 billion people dead. And immunity. It left 12 million healthy people like you, me, and Ethan. The other 588 million turned into your dark seekers.
Oh, these are these vampiric entities.
And they killed and fed on everybody. Everybody. Every single person that you or I has ever known.
So that's obviously the frustration he has is understandable indeed.
Is dead! Dead! There is no God. There is no God.
Now this part's key. So Robert is insisting that there's no God. And let's see what happens just right after he says that.
What is that? They followed us home.
So thus begins the final act of this film. It thus begins the chaos which would ensue here. So this was just a brief overview of this whole scene, which is a very pivotal scene in this film, and really is the core of this film. It's about God, the element of God in I Am Legend. So now let's go back to where Anna mentioned how, particularly when Robert wanted to unalive himself,
Anna,
And I got here just in time to save your life. You think it's a coincidence?
just
let's see, is she wrong? Absolutely not. She's absolutely right. Robert was in this terrible predicament, upside down inside his car, at the hands of this vampiric, demonic creature. Then, this shining bright light comes forth. Blinding light. And that light was Anna. We have an interesting allegory here going on, where this vampiric, and as I said, vampiric, demonic creature, these creatures are repulsed by light. So you can take away clear spiritual allegories going on here. How these demonic creatures are repulsed by light. Literally in the nick of time showed up and saved him. Truly a miracle. So when it comes to that aspect, she's absolutely right. She saves him. And she takes him in the car. And then that's when they're both united at the compound. Now let me cover this subject also. Let's look at this clip here. He's with his wife and daughter. And this will come into play later on in the film. It's very important, a very key moment.
My fellow Americans,
You left my
this
precious
mutating
princess in
virus
the
is a lethal
closet.
enemy
hush now,
that
Mark.
threatens the survival of not.
So that's his daughter right there. and they're on a car and they're evacuating. This is already when society is unraveling.
Not only our nation, but of every other nation.
Mommy,
on the
look,
planet.
it's a butterfly.
Marley, enough.
So it is with great sadness, but even
So what just happened right now will come into play. It's very important what just happened. The daughter doing the butterfly symbol. It's a seemingly normal gesture a child would do, and the dad completely overlooked it in that specific moment, understandably, because they're in distress, trying to evacuate. So here in this scene, the helicopter, and let's look at this scene right here.
Dear Lord, please watch over Robert and keep him strong with the struggles ahead of him, Lord. Please just bring him home safely. Amen.
Daddy's gonna make the monsters.
So the wife prayed and the family did a prayer. So we see here that, at least back then, this family had a strong bond with God. They would pray and have faith. This was Robert in the past, so we have the wife praying here to God, which is pretty significant. And then here we have this particular scene. So as he's saying goodbye to them, his daughter hands him the dog, Samantha. He wants to stay and try to seek a solution, but he wants his wife and daughter to evacuate safely. So we saw right here, the butterfly, again, is brought up. The daughter's butterfly gesture. So when we tie this in together,
The world is quieter now. You just have to listen.
so that's a very profound statement here. It all ties in together. That really solidifies the core of this film. And we see it play towards the end of this film in this highly climactic scene where essentially Robert and Anna and Ethan are stuck and surrounded by these creatures, and the only thing separating them is this strong glass barrier, but it's cracking, and it's eventually gonna break. It's gonna crack.
No.
So let's get to the core part here. Let's get to the key part here. Here, Robert is having an epiphany. And we can see here the butterfly symbol. So here we see the butterfly. So this is essentially a communication happening going on, and Robert's realizing the significance behind this butterfly symbol made in the glass, and he realizes in this cathartic moment, essentially, how it all ties in together, and we'll see how right here. And here we see Anna has a tattoo of a butterfly as well. So he heard his daughter's voice. In that moment, all tied in together. Something that seemed trivial, which was, a gesture his daughter would do, a child would do, which would be a butterfly symbol. And ends up being something that's very profound and meaningful, where he sees the butterfly there, and then he sees that Anna happens to have a tattoo of a butterfly on her neck, through hearing his daughter's voice. And that for him ties it all together, and he understands that everything that's been happening has been for a reason. It wasn't just happenstance that she heard his voice on the radio. It wasn't just happenstance that she showed in at the nick of time to save his life when he was upside down inside the car. That everything that's been happening really has been for a purpose, essentially just as Anna had stated before. So he gathers the blood.
Cole, shoot. It'll be safe. Ethan, get in.
Come on, get in. Get in.
Anna.
Tells him to enter in there.
Anna. I think this is why you're here.
What are you doing?
I'm listening.
That's the key part. That's the final crux of this film. That's the final crux of the matter. That's the key part right there. That's where it all tied in together, full circle. He totally understood what's happening to the point where he's the one actually understanding everything, even more than her. She's insisting, oh, there's room here. Come in here. And he's already had the epiphany of how things are meant to go.
There's room here.
They're not gonna stop. They're not gonna stop. Stay until dawn.
So we see Robert pulling out the drawer, looking at a picture of his wife and his daughter. As a final source of comfort. He understood his destiny in that sense. He had to keep them from even crossing that barrier. He had to stop them head on, because they would go straight for that spot where they're hidden. So he realized he had to stop them. He had to go up to them. He had to meet them in that barrier to prevent them from continuing. The significance of God and the significance of the butterfly, which is ultimately was the way God was communicating to Robert through this gesture that his daughter would often use. And when he put it all in together, he realized that everything that's occurred has been with purpose. Okay, so that's it. And I want to give a quick shout out. While working on this video, I stumbled upon this video from many years ago that does mention the butterfly aspect. And there's one key moment that's very interesting that I hadn't included in my video, where this video mentions here. You saw that? You saw that? The butterfly. So it was always there, but he just didn't notice until the very end. And I want to give a shout out to this comment I read here. Well, this person really nailed it. It's a premonition when he saw the pattern of wings. This comment here really got it right. It's a premonition when he saw a pattern of wings that was smashed in the glass. He remembered what his daughter said in his car years ago, and he noticed a butterfly tattoo. He then realized that God indeed sent this woman to bring the cure to the other survivors. So essentially, this person here got it right 11 years ago. And this was a video about the butterfly, but no video has been made on the element of God in I Am Legend. And also a shout out here for this comment here. This comment got it right here. This scene just hits harder when you realize that his family was praying with him just before. So that's a very on the point comment. So if you enjoyed my video, give a like, drop a comment, and hit that subscribe button. Thank you very much, and I want to end on this note.
The world is quieter now. You just have to listen. What are you doing?
I'm listening.